Hello, everyone, and welcome to another informative episode of the Florida Business Forum podcast. Let's open the Florida Business Forum floodgates and let the information begin to flow. Here's your Florida Business Forum information guru and anchorman, Sam Yates. Really excited about having a special guest today. We have the University of Florida Student Chapter President for the Florida Engineering Society, Nick Manco, with us. And we are going to take a look at a lot of the things that we've talked about here on the program from a student perspective. Nick, welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you for inviting me on. I'm excited to be here and just talk. I love this sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I always start by asking our guests to tell us a little bit about themselves, and you were very gracious to supply me with a little bit of bio, and rather than me reading the bio, I'd like to hear straight from you.
Yeah, so my name is Nick Manco. I am from Wesley Chapel, Florida, which is a suburb a little bit north of Tampa, if you don't know where that is. Currently, as Sam mentioned, I'm a student at the University of Florida. I'm a third year now, and I'm studying agricultural and biological engineering with a specialization in land and water resources. I know it's a very long name, that's why we call it ABE, but that's that. And then on top of school, I like to keep a good work-life balance. I'm in extracurriculars, one of them being the Florida Engineering Society, which is something I just love because I like to help people. I like to see people grow and succeed, and that's one of the things about the club, and just a bunch of cool people, that sort of thing.
Well, I can certainly tell you from the perspective of knowing things that are happening to our environment, the water situation, the discharges from, Lake Okeechobee, and a few other things, you will certainly most likely be very busy when you do graduate. So we're looking forward to seeing you in operation. From a student vantage point, what challenges do you see for other students getting into the engineering field?
So on terms of like getting interested in it, or like getting a position within the engineering field?
Both.
Okay. I think on the side of like getting into being interested in engineering, I feel like, as a kid, everybody like in school has like what they like, what they don't like. Some people it's like PE, some people it's music, some people like me, it's like math. And even though I loved math this entire time, I don't know if I was doing something wrong, but I never really knew what exactly engineering was as a kid, even in like middle and high school. But having like, if I had that exposure and known like, oh, like I've heard of engineering, but like now I know like what it is. I gotta like build stuff or like design these things and maybe like go through some engineering project once or whatever. I think that really could have got me interested in knowing like right off the bat, like, oh, engineering is what I want to do. Instead of what I ended up going through, which is like, okay, I like math, I kind of like environment, maybe engineering's for me. And then once I took college classes, that's when I kind of knew and found out. So I think that's definitely on the side of like, getting involved, getting interested, and just kind of knowing what engineering exactly is. On the other point of your argument on getting in the field, that's a big question. But that's something that I really like to like kind of focus on and like help other people with. I'm sure we'll talk about this at some point. But with like our student chapter, that's kind of like part of the point is to help students make that transition from being an undergraduate student who's new to college, new to this whole system, and then transitioning eventually into that field position. And that's just, developing professionally, which is just kind of getting your feet wet, understanding the lay of the land, and building those soft skills that make you a self-motivated person, that make you someone to help yourself and go after all these opportunities that can set you up for success in the future.
You've got a good grasp on it. Tell us about the chapter itself.
So the University of Florida chapter of FES, our main focus for this is, like I said, we try and focus on two main missions, which is professional development and networking. And I know it's a little bit different than the parent chapter because I know the parent chapter is very focused on licensure and while that is something that is important to us and we want to try and emphasize that on the undergraduate student level, not everybody's like focused about licensure. So we kind of make that like a one of our goals, but not our biggest main goal, which is to help students, like I said, learn maybe like how to build a resume, or like let's make you a LinkedIn, or let's help you practice like just talking to, professionals in the field, to realize that, hey, like engineers aren't that scary. They are just normal people, even though I understand, because I've been there, how scary it seems from the onset. So like I just mentioned, we do those sorts of events. We're currently working to have more like mixer events and like have opportunities for students to network outside of our big like annual events, like our formal dinner where we have engineers in the field sit one-on-one with professionals, our conference, our legislative days. And then also we just want to be a place where engineering students can hang out, have fun. I like to think of our FES club as like this like nice little family. And that's what I love so much about it. I love those little like homey places that you can always go to. So we just do fun stuff as well. Like we're having like a Halloween social tonight, even though I know it's a week later. It's called Deja Vu, just because get your second round of scares. I don't know why I'm advertising that, but I thought it was a pretty cool piece of marketing. And like we'll have like a potluck, and we this semester we actually did our first ever like intramural volleyball team, even though we lost every game. But just being a place where anybody from any major, any year, can come and hang out with other engineers and have a fun time.
Well, Nick, I have to tell you, I'm jealous as hell because that is so clever. Deja vu. I'm going to use that next year, and I might yet use it this weekend. But that is great, and I think a lot of times people do think engineers are somewhat stoic. They're calculated, predictive, and at the same time, there has to be a lot of creativity there because you think of new things. So I just want to pat you on the back for that, coming up with a deja vu. And, brings to mind something you said a moment ago, that engineering is not as scary as you thought, or perhaps at some point had a vision of it being scary. When you tell other students at UF that you're going to be an engineer, you're in the third year of engineering, those students who are not engineers, how do they react to that? Is it an oh wow, or oh yeah? How do they react?
I think like the perception of engineers is like, oh my, that is hard. You can go do that. I'll like stay over here. But I do think people in general like kind of admire it, like, oh, like you are a hardworking person. They recognize that, and I think it's cool. Maybe they aren't, big nerds like us, and it's like, oh my God, you get to like build airplanes and stuff. But I still think it's like, oh yeah, like, oh cool, like awesome, like that's good for you. I'm glad you're doing that. That seems awesome. That's gonna be great for you, because I feel like we have that personality fit that people know that it's right for us.
Yeah, and maybe the whole concept of engineering is changing a little bit too. I know the more that I talk to different engineers, even my perception of engineering is undergoing a metamorphosis. It's not the same way that I used to think of engineers, and I've worked with a lot of them. For your future internship, I know that's something that the parent chapter of Florida Engineering Society really is interested in. Have you had internships?
Yeah, so actually this past summer, I was working down in Tampa for Wade Trim. It's a civil engineering company. I was doing the water resources side, so I was helping out with a lot of their like their septic to sewer projects, working on plans, writing like permit applications, asset management, all that sort of stuff. And I would think it's probably been the most useful experience I've had as an engineer so far, because a lot of the classroom is like theoretical. And there are like design teams and things like that, but getting to work an internship really is like those direct things that you could see yourself working, every day. Like once you graduate, like this could be my life. And even on the side of, aside from the technical bit, I think it was very good for like a life perspective of like, I was working 40 hours a week and 9 to 5, and it's like this is like what life's going to be like. And it kind of, it's a different adjustment, but hopefully, having gone through it once, I will be ready for it when I am done graduated and do have a job.
So I take it that's one of the things that you highly recommend for others within your chapter. And what response do you get from some of the other students?
So I think generally from a student perspective, I think it's pretty well understood that internship is a really big goal and a really big check mark that you want to get. Not only because I think we've even maybe not through me telling them directly, but just talking to other engineers, other engineering students, hearing that they had that experience. Everybody that I've talked to always said internship has been an insanely helpful experience, a very great experience. And even on just the side of like, you come back from your summer and they talk about what they did at whatever company, and you're like, damn, that sounds really cool. So I think it's pretty well understood that, when people hear about internships, they hear that's something I want, that's something I want to go get. And I think gracefully, like in our chapter and all the people I talk to, they're like highly motivated people that get after that and apply and put themselves out there to put themselves in the best spot to obtain an internship.
Turning attention a bit to AI. I've interviewed a number of engineers who are still teaching and have great respect for AI, but some caution and concern as well. What are your thoughts?
So I see this is such a big topic right now. Oh my God. But I see AI as this sort of balance that we need to maintain. Obviously, it does have great potential as a very useful tool for us as engineers. I've heard of many great projects and even just like watch stuff online about, I did this like AI project. I'm like, damn, that's really cool. But also just to be careful on how it is affecting us. I know one topic that's talked about a lot is just policing AI, and while that doesn't have to do too much with like the engineering perspective, I think an over reliance on AI maybe not necessarily likely, but it's just something to watch out for because I think still having us do a lot of the work keeps us sharp, keeps us in our practice, and AI might change the role that we play. If we have AI doing a lot of our other work, maybe we can focus on more design work and like putting our creative brains to use. But we also want to make sure that we're able to go through the details and check everything over.
From your perspective, and I know you're a third year student, but you are still heavily immersed in engineering. What does the future hold, both for the industry and students getting into the industry?
I think at least on the students getting into the industry part, it almost, I feel like now as a student, I'm not sure, because I talk to professors or whatever, but it seems like now there's a much heavier emphasis on trying to do everything. I feel like there's almost more, it feels like a harder competition. So you have, like I mentioned, like I think that's one of the reasons why internships are so common now that people seek them out. It's like I have to have an internship or maybe two internships if I want to be able to get a job. And if I really want to get my goal, I need to also be on a design team and this and that and leadership. And it's almost a lot, especially when we're just trying to, we're just trying to at least make it through our degrees and get a job. So I think getting into industry, that might be, a little bit of a challenge or something to work around, especially, if we're being more challenged here. I mean, it does also, help prepare us for that next step a little bit more. But just on industry in general, I think that, obviously one of the big topic that we just mentioned, AI is going to change industry a lot, especially the roles we play, and how we work with AI and what work we actually do. But I think another topics for the industry that might change things is, just having to deal with that pressure of, I think we're going to have a greater population. We're going to have, more people, maybe even like more environmental concerns to consider. And I know a lot of companies and engineers are considering that now, but eventually we might reach this precipice, this turning point of we need to watch out for it too. We really need to deal with this right now, immediately. And I think that might be something to watch out for. Maybe that might, eventually change how education is. With AI being so big right now, AI, like computer programming classes are more emphasized now, where if we have some environmental issues later on that really puts an urgency on it, we might have to all take environmental classes, something like that. But those are just big, broad topics that might come into play, might not. But
I have to ask because we live in Florida. We seem to be more attuned to the environment than a lot of other people in the nation. Are you seeing that as well from the student perspective of more people? The environment is getting more to a critical point, and they're suddenly realizing it.
yeah, I mean, while I don't have like a reference of like students in other states to compare it to necessarily, I do feel like there is a certain alertness in Florida, especially because at least, within Florida we have like our bright future. So there's just a lot of, in-state students that we deal with. And so a lot of people, like, Florida is like their home and they care a lot about it and they want it to succeed. And when we have like some issues, like, maybe like if we have issues with the Everglades, or like there's like a talk about if Florida will eventually go underwater, like that's your home. So I think there is this higher alertness, this higher care to make sure that we do take care of our home, because we want to be here for the future, because we love it so much. Or at least I think we do. I do.
I agree with you, and I think from my vantage point and talking to a lot of different people from a lot of different locations, it's a growing concern, not just within the professional communities, but other communities as well. I know that we've covered a lot of topics. Is there anything else that you want to make sure we hear from Nick today?
Man, that's not much. I mean, I guess one thing is that when working with our chapter, like I mentioned, one of our goals that we're working towards now is just increasing that bond and that connection to the field engineers. And I know that when I went to conference this past year for FES, talking to a lot of professionals, I gained the perspective of, we, like, they want to help us, and we also, want to help them. So I don't be afraid to bridge that relationship with students. I'm not saying people aren't, but just as I think students can be a little bit scared to talk to the older crowd. Maybe sometimes the older crowd's like, man, I don't know if I'm cool with the college kids anymore. Like, you totally are. As long as you're a cool person, we love talking with you, and we want to help you align our goals, work together, because we're all in this together. Despite the age, whatever education you grew up with, wherever you're from, we're all just trying to help and promote engineering, help build better solutions. And if we can help each other, why not get started on that? So
perhaps the toughest question for the entire interview, and I saved it to right near the end of the program. Does the University of Florida have one of the most outstanding engineering programs in the nation?
Yes, it does. I love it. Made me scared that was a real tough question.
I couldn't resist it. Everywhere I turn, I see the Gator, and it's like, yep, it's one of the best programs. It has one of the best programs in the nation. So I want to take the opportunity to thank you very much, Nick, for being on the program today. And the second toughest question: will you be able to come back at some point in the future and give us an update and stay in touch with us?
Yes, I'd love to. I love all this stuff. I did video production in high school. This stuff's awesome. Love it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have an affirmative response from Nick. Nick, it has been my pleasure, and we will make sure that we remain in touch. And it has been my pleasure to say we now have accomplished a goal of having the student president for the Florida chapter of the Florida Engineering Society on our program. I am so happy.
Awesome. I appreciate you inviting me out. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. And that's going to wrap up this edition of the Florida Engineering Society Engineering Florida podcast. I'm Sam Yates. Have a great day, everybody. The Florida Business Forum is dedicated to showcasing Florida businesses and CEOs of all sorts to promote their business or not-for-profit in the only business forum of its type in Florida. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, the Florida Business Forum is now accepting guest applications. Have a great day, everyone, and stay tuned for more business.